clock. Oh my gosh. So my name is Jerrica, Pierson, Seeger, and I just joined Rehberg Law Group about 8 weeks ago. And but before that, I was a trust exam specialist for the state. And then before that, I was in private practice doing just what I do now. So I started in private practice working specifically with seniors, planning for asset protection, quality of life, how do we keep you in your homes all the way to the end. And loved it. But had a third baby, decided maybe that's too much. And so I went and worked for the state, learned a lot, but said, you know what, I'm a people person. I want to come back and work with people. So that's what I did, and the Rehberg Law Group gave me the opportunity to do that. So as part of that, I'm here presenting on how do we age with confidence, right? What exactly does that mean? It means whatever you want it to mean, right? One of the things that we get to talk about with our clients when we talk about retirement planning, quality of life planning, is that you guys get to decide how you define your quality of life and what you want to be your goals for how your life is going to be until we get to take the next step. Okay? So today we're going to talk a little bit about ways that as an attorney I can help you maximize whatever your goals are. Okay? So the roadmap for today is going to be, one, we're going to talk about what are typical goals of people who are in retirement, about to retire, in their 80s, in their 90s, all the way. Okay? What are their concerns? What do they stay up at night thinking about that they're worried about? We'll talk a little bit about that. Then we're going to talk about what can I do as an attorney and what are other resources out there in the community to help you reach your goals. Okay? And then the third is what happens if things don't go the way we planned? What are some resources and agencies and things we can do to help people who are being abused? There's financial exploitation, things like that. Okay? So 2 fun topics, 1 not so fun. All right? So raise your hand and share your goal or maybe someone else's goal. What do you think are typical goals for retirees? What are the concerns?
To have enough money to live as long as we need.
You got it. I don't want to die broke. Right? Good. What would be another goal or concern? Yes?
Have a purpose.
Good. Define what you want to do. Do it. Quality of life.
To be healthy.
To be healthy. Yes. Man, if I could tell you how to maintain healthy. What are some other concerns that people have in retirement? Medical costs. Huge. Yep. That's right. Medical costs, long-term care costs are the largest financial risk for people in retirement when we don't have large taxable estates, right? Now there's a couple that haven't been mentioned. One of them is, how many people like their home? How many people want to stay there? Right? Aging in place. People do not want to have to be forced to leave to go to skilled nursing, right? It's a fear, huge fear. And the last one that a lot of people don't talk about, but when I start digging in with client meetings, they'll say, I don't want to burden my kids, right? So when we look at those goals, right? I don't want to die broke. I want to stay in my own home or in a place I choose, whatever that is. And the third one is, I want to maintain my quality of life. I don't want to be a burden on my family. How do we plan around those goals? All right? So first we're going to tackle issues of quality of life. Okay? You guys get to define What is your quality of life? Great example over here. Find a purpose, do it, love it, get involved, right? But if you're sick or dealing with an incapacity, it is very difficult to do that. How can you, if you are struggling with an incapacity or an illness, protect your quality of life? Any ideas? Good, you guys get to learn something today. Yes.
Stay healthy.
Stay healthy, yes. Yes.
Get assistance.
Get assistance, that's a great
My aunt
example.
has that. She has someone that comes into the home a couple times a week and
Right,
helps her with errands or whatever.
right. Don't wait until you're really, really injured and sick to seek help. Many of the baby boomers, right, don't like to ask for help. They want to be independent, all right? So asking for help is a big deal, but I would encourage you to think if you get it earlier, you can protect your quality of life because it helps protect against future, more serious injuries, all right? Now, one of the things that attorneys can do is we prepare powers of attorney for you. Do you guys all know what a power of attorney is?
Yes.
Right. How many of your powers of attorney know what you define as quality of life? 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent. Sit down and talk with your agents and say, this is what I want, and here's how you make it happen for me. Here are the type of resources out in the community. Here are the things that I find that bring me purpose. Power of attorney, get me involved, keep me engaged. Here's what I want to do. Great, great lesson for your family. So they actually know what it is that you define as quality of life. In one of the practices that I do is at the end of our planning, we do a family meeting where we haul your agents in and we say, okay, we're going to talk about death, taxes, and illness. Who wants to go home now? But I will tell you 100% of these family meetings have ended fabulously. The parents able to share with whomever they've picked as their agent exactly why they picked them as their agent, what are the expectations, and how do they want to live out the rest of their lives. Pretty cool. The kids walk away with the document, so they have it when they need it. It's not a stressful thing. They understand the terms of it. They understand how to act on it. And now they don't have to feel the guilt of, well, is this really what mom or dad wanted? Is this really what sister or brother wanted? Am I making the right decision? They'll know because you'll have told them. Okay? Really great practice.
Jerrica?
Yes?
And I would say that this strong language, I'm here on behalf of my parents, and they thought they had everything arranged. And the power of attorney's language was drafted in 1994, and the language now is different. And as the executrix or the agent of their will, I have had a multitude of problems getting the money.
Right.
And,
Huge.
So I would encourage even people that you know who say everything's all done to have it updated, because my mom is up in heaven looking down. She can't believe how much money and time I've spent dealing with the language that no longer is effective.
That's a great example. And in fact, let me dovetail right onto that. Next year, a new Power of Attorney Act is being released. And in that has a bunch of additional information on how power of attorneys are going to be viewed specifically by financial institutions and doctors. And so a great opportunity to take a look and make sure that the language you have in your power of attorney clearly defines what you want to have happen, communicates who you want to manage your stuff, what happens if that person's not available, and down, as well as address things like digital assets. How many people have online bank accounts, right? I mean, that's a big deal. Some of us don't. I don't either, but that's because I'm stubborn. So, looking at your power of attorney, really can define how effective your agent can be at helping you age with dignity as you become unable or less able to do things on your own.
And it would be easier to do it while your brain is still functioning.
Correct. You really,
Mr.
yeah.
Reinhardt could tell you what it was like to get my dad, who was 90, who had had a stroke, to understand that he needed a new power of attorney.
Yeah.
So I, myself, I'm only 61. I have encouraged, before we leave the country again, my husband and I are going to redefine our power of attorney.
Good.
Because it is nothing you want to wish on your agents. If my mom knew, like I said before, if my mom knew, she would have taken care of it. And so, in hindsight, which is always 20/20,
Right. Right.
I would encourage that. My hair used to be had a lot more color in it. 6 months ago.
By the way, I did not pay Janet to be
Yeah,
here.
you can-
But I could have.
You can use my life
Oh.
experience.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. That's very valuable.
Yeah.
The second document attorneys can do for you to help ensure quality of life is helping you walk through what you really want at end of life sustaining treatment. And I know this is about as fun of a conversation you're ever going to have, right? I mean, who really wants to dive into this stuff? Nobody. But I encourage you, do it now so that when your agent steps into your shoes and has to make that decision, should mom or dad have oxygen removed? Should mom or dad have CPR? Do they want to be in a bed hooked up to tubes? What do they want? That decision will have been made for them by your words. So, it's tough. This journey of life is tough. And it's not just your journey, it's your agent's journey with you. So the easier you make it for them, the more successful your quality of life goals will be. Okay? The third one, create a network of allied professionals. Attorney. Along with attorneys, right? Because no one wants to come to an attorney's office. Along with attorneys, there are a number of professionals out there designed to keep people with high quality of life, even in the face of incapacity. Do you guys know what that industry is called? What's that?
Elder law.
Elder law, that's me. But thank you, yes, this one is one, more has to do with personal care, keeping people in their home, getting you the right type of care. Isn't that a shame? You guys want to know? They're called geriatric care managers. Okay? A geriatric care manager is someone who comes in and meets with the family or the agents, whomever you picked to be your advocate, works together with those agents to design a plan of care to maximize your quality of life goals. And if it's, my mom had a purpose, she wanted to read to people who were blind, right? That geriatric care manager can find communities that will allow mom to go read to individuals or have individuals read to her, right? So they know all of these community resources that they can band together to build a plan of care around what you've defined as your quality of life. They can also help hire the right professionals to come in and provide the care that you need, tell you how many hours someone may need to stay in their own home and be safe, what type of work that care person is supposed to provide. And then they're going to keep an eye on those care providers to make sure that they do what they're supposed to do, that your quality of care is high, that there isn't any monkey business going on when those care people come in. So it's a constant relationship built around the family support or the agent support and this geriatric care manager. Pretty cool? Yeah. Some other professionals are the financial planners. They need to be involved because when we talk about protecting quality of life, we really need to have some amount of financial assets to make that happen. And we're going to talk a little bit about more what that means in just a minute. okay? But getting your financial planner engaged, well, for one, in Janet's example, she spent months and months and months trying to figure out how to get the money. If that financial planner had been engaged with the attorney and the parents when they designed that power of attorney, everyone would have understood what the roles were, when to execute on the plan, and the financial power of attorney could have assisted in getting all of that taken care of. We pay them, we might as well use them. Okay, so the second two goals, and we're gonna jump into them a little bit, is how do we age in place? Right, if you're dealing with an incapacity, how can we keep you in your own home? And then we're gonna take a step back and say, how do we protect your assets? Okay, so those are the next two things we're gonna dive into, all right? The question is it even possible to stay in your own home? How many people believe it's possible, come what may, to stay in their own home? Excellent. What if you're in a 3-story townhouse? What if the laundry's in the basement and your bedroom's on the 2nd floor? What about a steep driveway? Right? Being able to age in place really has to do with how you've decided to design your home. So those beautiful craftsman 1930s skinny hallways, teeny bathrooms, it's just not going to be feasible if you are in a wheelchair. So being strategic about the house that you decide to age in will go a long way to keep you in your own home, even in the face of incapacity. If we got to get a hospital bed in the bedroom, it's got to be able to fit through the door, right? If you need an assistant to help you in the shower or the bathroom, there's got to be room for them to help you in and out of their bathroom and get you safely out without both of you falling over, right? So if your goal, and many people do say, my number one goal is to avoid institutional care. Number one, I'll spend every dollar I have to avoid institutional care. If that's your goal, you better be going home tonight, looking around your house and saying, what are the barriers in front of my house that are going to keep me from coming home? And if you don't know the answer to that, there are occupational therapists that come out to your home and will do a home safety evaluation. You can call your local fire department and they will come out and do a home safety evaluation. If you have a really amenable physician, you can ask him for Medicare to cover a home safety evaluation if you have had a fall or some other health concern that may lead them to allow Medicare to cover it. All you got to do is ask. And that home safety evaluator will come into your home, tell you where the grab bars need to be, what doorways need to be widened, how many extra lights you got to put on, what the level of the counter should be, where the rugs need to go, all of that stuff, right? Many of us don't even realize it's the little stuff sometimes that can be the largest barriers to being able to come back home. So you take care of that ahead of time, and then when something does happen and the doctors go out to your house to do an evaluation before they discharge you from the hospital, guess who's going to be at the door greeting them? Your geriatric care manager, potentially your attorney, and your kids with the power of attorney that says, here are the results of the home safety evaluation I had performed. Here's how we're going to make home care possible. Here's the geriatric care manager who's going to manage the care being provided in the home. The only reason doctors don't discharge you home, do you know why? Because if you fall down after you've been discharged home, guess who's liable? They are. So that's the name of the game. So now we help doctors decide a safe discharge. And that's how you do it. But again, if it's a 3-story townhouse, hard to do. All right? Any other questions on aging in place? Good stuff so far? Good. So the last one. I don't want to die broke. How do I protect my assets? Okay. When we are looking at incapacity planning, right, like we talked about earlier, long-term care costs, medical costs, number one financial risk for individuals in America. Now, if you have tens of millions of dollars, you can take everything else I've talked about and apply it to your life. What we're going to talk about now is if you are in the other 95% of the population that say, there is a concern I'm going to run out of money if I'm struck with a long-term care incapacity issue. So if you are struggling with an incapacity, or you have a disability that requires you to need personal care, which means you need people to come in and help you do your activities of daily living, right, every day. Dressing, toileting, showering, eating, moving around your house safely. If those are needs that you have on a daily basis, you can imagine that the cost to hire someone to do that is exorbitant. I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? And that's not a good feeling. There are 2 programs that will assist people with the cost of their personal care needs. And if you're following along, I think this is page 5, 6, and 7. All right, the first program, which also happens to be the most comprehensive, is the Medicaid program. Raise your hand if you've heard horror stories about Medicaid. Crappy places. They take your house. You have to be totally broke. Sound familiar? Okay. I will tell you that to some degree, some of those things are true. But for the majority of us, those will not be the case. Okay? There are rules under the Medicaid program that allow me, or you, but hopefully you'll be working with me, to protect your assets to a very large degree. If you're married, I can protect pretty much the entire estate. Okay? Depending on, again, these are estates that are moderate. And still qualify an ill spouse for Medicaid. So if there's one takeaway from today's meeting, it's that you shouldn't be scared to talk with somebody about Medicaid. And don't wait until the dollars have all run out to do it, because then I can't protect anything. Okay? Do you guys want me to go through the marital rules real quick? I didn't put them in the slide because I was supposed to only have 20 minutes, but you guys want me to go through them real quick? Sure. If you're married and one spouse falls ill, we're going to split you up. We're going to call you the ill spouse and the well spouse, okay? The ill spouse can only have $2,000 of assets in their name. Okay, not warm and fuzzy, I know. We're going to get to the good part. The well spouse can own one house of any value, one car of any value, between $55,000 to $119,000 in other assets, whatever those are, life insurance, burial plots, all the personal property you've got, plus an unlimited stream of income. Now, where in those rules does it say people have to be dead broke before they can qualify for Medicaid? Nowhere. Nowhere. Okay? Pretty cool?
How can they get the unlimited stream of income?
That's one of the planning opportunities that we have as attorneys to help families protect the entire marital estate, because there are certain tools that the DSHS, which is the agency that manages Medicaid, allows us to use to turn an asset, retirement account, investment account, savings account, sale proceeds from property, whatever, into a stream of income in the name of the well spouse. Okay? Yes?
So if we've already got all of the core documents set up with your colleagues upstairs, you know, the will, the stakes, all those kind of things, when do we bring you in to do this kind of thing?
Sure. For married couples, if you get a diagnosis or a determination of some illness, come in and talk with me. The more prep time you give me, the better off you're going to be, because there may be some additional things we want to tweak with your financial assets to make you as best prepared as possible to do all this hocus pocus to make us fit into the marital rules for Medicaid, okay? And we'll go into those details sort of on a case-by-case basis, because they can get kind of gnarly. But in the end, the takeaway is, as married couples, I can protect a substantial amount of money and get one spouse qualified for Medicaid. And oh, by the way, Medicaid provides benefits in your own home. Did you know that? Depending on your care needs, Medicaid will bring care providers into your own home and provide hours of service. So when we look at Medicaid, it's not just for institutional care, it's for in-home care as well. All right? Now I'll tell you, as a single person, planning for Medicaid is less glamorous. As a single person, you can have $2,000 in assets, you can own a home, you can own a car, but at your passing, the state will impose a lien against your property to recover what it has expended for your care during your lifetime. All right? Now, I know that doesn't feel warm and fuzzy, but there are a number of exceptions, rules within Medicaid that allow us to do some pretty creative planning. If the house is really important and you want to make sure your house gets to your kids, there are some things we can do. There's also some strategies using a partial gift, partial spend down. So again, if you're single and you're concerned that your money's going to run out, come see an attorney before you've spent it all. Okay?
So what you're implying then is that you've got the ill spouse, going back to the marital scenario you're talking about, the ill spouse, you've got that figured out. But then, and let's say they pass, then the remainder then is called your single spouse. And
right.
therefore all your rules trigger.
So that is a very good question. I appreciate that. So what he said is, we do all this hocus pocus to make a married couple eligible, right? We have all the assets in the well spouse. We have no assets in the ill spouse. What happens if the well spouse dies? What does your will now say? I love you, honey, everything goes to my spouse, right? So we'll talk about that. There are some really creative tools to protect against exactly that. And we would just do those modifications as necessary. But yes, we can protect, and in fact, it would be remiss of me to allow a married couple to get into Medicaid planning if I didn't then protect that plan in the event one of them died. I mean, how mad would you be at me? Pretty mad, right? And I'd be devastated. So there are legal tools that we can use with your wills that protect against that exact thing from happening, okay? All right, so we got Medicaid. The second major program is the VA. How many of you in here, and if you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to raise your hand, served 90 days of active duty, one of those days being during a declared wartime period? And you could have been sitting at the United States the entire time. Probably anybody who served in the military, right? That makes you eligible. It also makes your surviving spouse eligible, so long as the marriage didn't end in divorce. Okay? So there's an income benefit if you're an eligible veteran to receive up to $2,400 a month in additional income to help cover the costs of your care needs. And if you're a veteran and you want to stay at home and you're paying all of your income towards the cost of your care, but you still have to pay the light bill and the food bill and buy the groceries, and oh, by the way, you still have a spouse who wants roses every now and then, or something that guys want every now and then, I don't know. You know, how are you going to pay for that? Well, the veterans benefit will add up to $2,400 a month to a married couple, $1,700 to a single surviving veteran, and about $1,150 to a surviving spouse of a veteran. Pretty cool. Not a lot of veterans even know about that program. It's in the community considered aid and attendance. The new name next year will be pension. So that's a great asset.
How do you find out if you're eligible? Like he was 4 years in the Air Force.
Was one of those days during a declared wartime period?
I don't know.
So there are charts exactly when like Vietnam ended, exactly when Korean conflict ended. And if you have one of those days, you're in. Now, there is an asset test for the veterans benefits. And if you're married, currently, if you're married, you can have a house, a car, all your personal property, and your other assets got to be around $80,000, give or take. If you're a single surviving veteran or a surviving spouse, you can have a house, a car, all your personal property, and around $20,000 in other assets. Currently, the VA does not penalize for gifting assets away in order to reduce your asset level down to the appropriate amount. Giant caveat, There's proposed rules out right now that would change that. So before you go giving all your money away to qualify, please come in and see an attorney, okay? But the new rules would act more like Medicaid. So in fact, it'll actually be easier to plan in the future because those two main programs will be more friendly to each other as opposed to what they are now, which is very unfriendly, okay? But those are two great programs. If you want to age in place and just need a little bit more to make your bills and pay for your care, and you're a qualified veteran, this is a fabulous tool to make that happen. Any more questions on those? Yes.
I didn't understand the $80,000 asset, and you have to be down to $80,000
In other assets.
in other assets in order to qualify.
Right. And there's a number of different techniques that we can talk about on how to make that happen. But yes, there is an asset test. Okay. Any other questions? Still excited to be here? Good. All right, so now the less fun topic. What happens if things don't go as planned? You know, there's a huge upsurge in policy, in legislation. In fact, there was a bill out proposed just this last voting cycle that has to do with elder abuse. This is a huge problem. Financial abuse, physical abuse, undue influence, isolation. You know, there are a number of resources out in the community to help if you suspect that is happening or you yourself are a victim of that. But the resources had just not caught up with the reality of the problem. And I'm going to tell you that straight out. That being said, there are some resources you can reach out to if you suspect elder abuse, financial exploitation, or, you know, the kids, the power of attorney that mom and dad swore they could trust, pocketing all their money and shipped them off to some, you know, unmonitored community. The first one, which is the most common, is the Adult Protective Services. It's a department underneath the Department of Health and Human Services. You just call up. Anyone with a good faith concern can say, I want this to be anonymous or not, and report your suspicions. And the APS will investigate. And then they'll follow the investigation through to some conclusion. Typically, if there is abuse going on, APS will file what they call a vulnerable adult protection order, which is essentially a restraining order against the perpetrator from the vulnerable adult. You yourself, as an interested party, or if you are being abused personally, can also file a vulnerable adult protection order, and that's a process that goes through the courts. I will tell you the commissioners take that very, very seriously. And I have been in the courtroom where there was what we would call a VAPO, that's what they're called. And the judge thought that the perpetrator had intimidated the individual to the degree that the individual did not show up in court. And I do not want to share with you what happened to that individual, but it was not positive, and everyone walked out of the courtroom going, oh my God. They do not like their elders being abused. And if they suspect that there is a perpetrator who's intimidating, they will go out of their way to meet with that vulnerable adult and make sure that their story is heard. So this is serious business, and the courts take it really, really serious. But that's a big process. It's courtroom. A lot of people are scared. They don't like to go. So if that's not something that you want, some other avenues other than filing with the APS is to look at if they're in a community, you can go to the ombudsman program. Washington State has a number of ombudsmen. There's also some regional ombudsmen. And I think I gave you the phone number or the website for them. And the one problem with the ombudsman is that the individual that you are concerned about has to be engaged in the conversation. So if they don't want to be engaged in the process, the ombudsman really can't move forward with protecting or taking any action or advocating for that individual's rights. Okay? The goal is that these sorts of resources will expand in the future as more and more legislation and more advocates get out there. But right now, that's what we got. We also have the rights under your power of attorney and your trust, and that would involve coming to your attorney and saying, here's the things I want. Here's what I need to do to remove untrustworthy agent, and your attorney can walk you through how to make that happen. Okay? There's all sorts of remedies that we can punish bad people when we catch them and when they haven't spent everything, right? Including criminal charges. Okay? Any other questions? I answered all your questions? No, so thank you guys so much for participating. If you have any questions, you want to talk, or you want to set an appointment, please do so. Okay? Thank you. You're so welcome.